Hey everyone, welcome back to day 2 of this quick walkthrough on how to unlock the abilities of large language models like GPT using code. I'm Alex with AI Camp, and now that we have some fundamentals built, not going to waste any of your time, and we're going to start moving quickly. Let's get started. All right, so we were talking about it at the end of last course. Have you thought about why user interfaces are important when you're building machine learning solutions? Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was talking about GPT and said, "We had the model for ChatGPT in the API for about 10 months before we made ChatGPT. I sort of thought someone else was going to just build it." By taking GPT-3 and making it easy to use, a little bit better, and as familiar as texting a friend, the barrier to entry was removed for millions of people. Users immediately saw how powerful the tool is, shared it, and ChatGPT became the fastest growing consumer application in the history of the internet. It got 100 million users in 2 months. There are many similar opportunities to use these brand new tools to provide real value in so many different cases. But to do so, you'll need to make an interface people can use without having to dive into your code or deal with complex parameters. Today, we're going to introduce Gradio. Gradio is an open source Python library we can use to build demos right into a browser. All right, so today's key concepts. We're going to talk about Gradio interfaces and using Replit Secrets to manage API keys. The lesson objectives. Today, we're going to create an interface for the simple text generation demo that we made in day 1. We're going to use Replit Secrets to manage our API keys, and we're doing that because as we progress, we're going to try and introduce some industry best practices, and API key management is essential if you ever plan on making your end product public. Moving into Gradio basics. Gradio is a free and open source Python library that lets you develop an easy to use, customizable demo for your machine learning model anyone can use anywhere right in their browser. It integrates with the most popular Python libraries, scikit-learn, PyTorch, NumPy, TensorFlow, and a lot of others. You can get started super easily by going to their website and checking out their documentation. In their quick start guide, they've got summarization on what Gradio does, as well as a hello world program. We've got code below to write a basic user interface. Looks like it's a whole 5 lines, and we can get a demo that looks just like this. We've got the same code here, and let's go ahead and put it into our main file and try it ourselves. All right, go ahead and give it a run. And just like that, we've got a local URL and a public one that we'd be able to share with our interface. Nothing's happening quite yet. Besides saying hello, we could put our name here, and we could see it come together just because we're returning hello plus our one input, and we've created a Gradio interface where we call that one function, have one text input and one text output. How slick is that? We can make a simple interface that works in Python in just a few lines of code. Next, we want to use Replit's Secrets tool. So Replit Secrets allows you to store sensitive information like passwords and API keys securely. Storing sensitive information like API keys as environment variables provides security, flexibility, and reusability. We can check out the documentation to learn a little bit more about Replit's secrets and environmental variables. To store our Hugging Face API key as an environment variable in Replit, we're going to want to do a few things. Go to Tools, in the key box, name our variable inference API, and add the new secret. So let's go ahead and grab our Hugging Face API key from huggingface.co/settings/tokens. You can see my GPT testing token down here that we used last time. I'm going to go ahead and copy that and follow the instructions we have here. So in my tools section, look for secrets. In here, going to go ahead and add a key. I'm going to go ahead and name it Hugging Face key and add that value there and store in there. I've already saved this, so I'm going to have this error, but it'll save. Great for you. Once we've got it stored, let's go ahead and make sure we can access that in main.py and put it right here at the top so we can use it later. All right, let's keep moving. Next, we want to make a text generation interface. So we're all set up. We have our keys. We want to be able to create a Gradio interface for the code that we had on day 1. We've got the code here as reference, And we've got documentation here for Gradio on how we can use Hugging Face integration, the transformers library, as well as using the inference API. This is using a little bit of a different approach than what we were using. But with this material, I'm sure you're able to make those connections, or at least go ahead and give it a try on your own right now. All right, hopefully you had a chance to try that out. We're going to go ahead and walk through it on our side all together. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is turn the text generation that we had loose in our main into a function. Makes it easy to integrate with Gradio, and this is best practice anyway. We don't want loose lines of code floating around in our repo. We can go ahead and put that right into our main. We can see we've got some issues with our inference here. We just want to go back, make sure we have our import, and that we've set our inference equal to the inference API's call of GPT2 large. Once we've got this parameterized, and it's taking in an input string as well as a max length into the same code that we had last time, just this time saved to 4 different variables. So we have 4 different outputs because we saw with our Gradio interface before that it took in inputs and outputs. We're going to go ahead and remove this for now. We want to actually build our new Gradio interface. We know we've got text inputs and we've got 4 text outputs. We added our max length here as well, so we can add a slider for that. There's a lot of great examples on how to do that in our quick start guide. If we scroll back down here, we're sure to find something that we can use to build what we're looking for. So as we can see, looks like we've got a slider, and it's just easy Gradio.slider with our lower and higher bounds. So we can go ahead and do something like this, where we have a function defining to Gradio, where we have a demo that takes in our text gen function as the function. We have an input that's text for our input text. We have a Gradio slider from 0 to 250 that we can set for our length. And our 4 outputs are all going to be text. Either our deterministic text using top P, top K, or contrasted parameters. And we add a little bit of a title and description. We've got demo.launch right here in this file. So all we've got to do now to run the whole thing is make sure we have a main defined so we can run our whole app. Let's give it a shot. Oh, made a quick mistake. Of course, we've got to call our environment variable before we reference it in our inference API. Let's go ahead and try that again. All right, we've got something live. Let's check it out. This is great. This is a super easy to use user interface. Let's try something. Let's try it out with a max length a little bit longer than what we were looking at before. It's going to take a second to generate, but Gradio has these nice animations, so it doesn't even feel like that long to wait. All right, it took a second there with a longer max length. But as we can see, we've got our 4 different types of generated text, and we can compare and contrast them right here, way easier than what we had before. We can also try a bunch of different experiments, and I think we can get a whole lot out of it. What do you think? How does this compare with testing our tools before there was an interface? One feature that we could add really quickly to this, now that we have text output, is quickly adding the ability to speak out our response with text to speech with one additional audio output in Gradio and Google's text to speech GTTS Python library. It's a Python library and command line tool to use Google Translate's text to speech API. And go ahead and give it a shot right now, trying to implement this on your own. You should have everything you need here in the GTTS GitHub repository and the Gradio Quick Start library. Hopefully you were able to get that added, but regardless, let's go through it together. Adding text-to-speech to Gradio is quick. All we got to do is convert our contrastive search results to audio with these quick 3 lines. Now we want to be sure that we're actually applying the Google text-to-speech on actual text. So we need to pull out the generated text directly. If we look at our outputs before, we can see that our outputs are not just text exclusively. They're actually a list of length 1 with generated text associated with our actual text within a JSON-like object. So we're actually going to be referring to this first item in that list, generated text, and that's what we'll convert using GTTS and save. Once we've got it saved, which we're going to go ahead and add in here, we can also make sure that we output that audio file with our return. And we can't forget that we've got to import this at the top. When we look at the documentation, we can see that this is how we want to import GTTS. We'll add that at the top here. Now that we've got that imported, one last thing we've got to do is change our output here to make sure that Gradio is ready to take that one additional output in the form of audio. All right, let's go ahead and save it and give it a run. Let's check it out. So let's go ahead and try what we were trying last time, maybe with a little bit shorter length to have it go a little bit quicker. And boom, just like that.
It's a great idea to learn artificial
elevated our app
intelligence
to the
with
next
AI
level.
Camp. And we're excited
It's
to be
much
a
more
part of it.
accessible. We have new features, and that was easy as pie to add into our existing user interface. Gradio has so many more features and integrations with NLP and other pipelines. Their full documentation walks you through so many other components that you can add into your app. Another great example was actually shared recently by researcher Zhao Gante and highlights the ability to color code output based on model certainty. Here we can see the demo. Let's go ahead and check it out on Hugging Face. What this is doing is looking at the probability of each generated token and color coding them based on their internal confidence. We can see that we asked a question, answering the following question step by step of a simple math problem. The cafeteria had 23 apples. They used 20 for lunch, bought 6 more. How many left? We can see that while there was a lot of correct predictions within, our incorrect facts were correctly highlighted as less confident. This is really important because being able to detect accurate information is a critical capability. Inaccurate information is one of the biggest risks when using large language models, along with bias and toxicity. Meta actually discussed those risks when they released their paper, Democratizing Access to Large-Scale Models. Forbes wrote about AI ethics and the future of where large language models are heading, and that's just the tip of the AI ethics rabbit hole that I really encourage you to spend time exploring. The more people and perspectives involved in those discussions, the better. All right, that was day 2. Today in day 2, we learned what Gradio is, how to use it, create a user interface. We learned how to use Replit Secrets to store our keys. We built a user interface for our text generation, enhanced it with text-to-speech, and thought about ethical considerations of using these large language models. Some things to think about before joining us tomorrow for day 3. What other types of large language models are there? How can we use those to solve problems like text summarization? And what other tasks can these models be used for? Continue going through this short course. We're going to be done real quick. And check out AI Camp. If you're a teenager interested in joining a community solving problems with technology and exploring careers in tech, check us out. We offer 1 and 3 week camps, but exceptional students join our team tomorrow. TT members work after school and on weekends on paid internal and external projects, opening doors to their future. In fact, Team Tomorrow member Will Crouch, a high school junior, helped create today's content. Big shout out to Will, and thank you guys for joining. Make sure to share your experience in this course with your friends, with your loved ones. Sharing keeps us accountable, fired up, and motivated to keep on growing. I'll see you guys soon in our lesson 3 of 4.